All aboard! We're talking about free public transportation this week.
We are. And we are. And it's been coming up as a big story because it was one of the promises that Mohammed made in New York when he wanted to become mayor, and they're having some problems with that. And now I think it's Kansas City that just suspended
We'll
their
talk
free
about that in a
transit.
second, okay?
Yeah. I know.
Hello.
Hello, I'm here. Sorry, got distracted. Was trying to get things going in Instagram, hoping to bring that back, but we're having some problems there too.
That's okay. We'll get on there eventually. So let's see. We got CBC voter in the house and Dr. Donnie. Hey, Dr. Donnie, good to see you're early for once. That's all right. But, early, late, as long as you show up, that's cool. That's all we care about. How you doing, Lainie?
I'm doing fine, just discombobulated, but that happens.
That's all right. We're back on track. Don't worry about it. Look, we all have those days. It's fine. So, I know I'm kind of excited about talking about free public transportation.
It is going to be interesting. It is going to be interesting.
Before we get there, though, we want to update you on our buddy Yoninah. You want to talk about that?
Sure. As you know, we always put out our mutual aid links for the people that we are aware of who are in need of help at this time, them or their families. And one thing that has been going on for a while is our friend Yoninah, who has really been a supporter of this channel, as well as many other channels in this ecosphere, has fallen on some hard times. She had to relocate from her home, and I think it was in Central Illinois, up here to Chicago. That has been a rough ride. She has been homeless since she got there. She is now in housing. Housing has been found for her. But unfortunately, she did lose her cat, Empress, who she raised from a kitten. And she's trying to find the cat. The cat was lost in Wrigleyville. She's filed a police report and is trying to get help with that. Also, her phone screen has cracked. And she needs to be paying rent at the place where she is staying. She's on a very limited income. And if anybody can help her out, I know that there's a lot of folks going out there with GoFundMe links. I'm gonna paste this also into the chat. This is verified. We know this person. We know who she is. We know about her situation. She's been very transparent about it. And if anybody is able to provide some help at this point, even if it's just sharing out the link, that would be so helpful. And also, if you are in Chicago and you know anybody who's doing animal rescue, working in shelters, who might be able to help her find Empress, that would be fantastic as well.
Yeah, and the links are down in the description on all the shows too, as well as along with our other folks who are in need of mutual aid too. So again, if you can donate, that's great. If you can share those out, that works as well too. So, but right now we have a lot of news to get to. If I can, I'm a little discombobulated myself.
I'm sorry.
But it must be one of those days.
It is one of those days, I'm afraid.
That's all right. All right. At least we're having a better day than they are in Japan. Those poor people.
Oh, yeah, they really are. It's tough.
Yeah. So rescuers are searching for survivors after a 7.1 quake kills 18 in southwestern Japan. And unfortunately, there's some video right there. Unfortunately, there is probably going to be more casualties as well. They're still going through the devastation there. This is at one of their oil refineries, I believe.
Oh.
Look at that. Just a 7.1 is crazy town.
Wow.
It's for those who don't know how the earthquake ratings go. It's not like say if you have a 7 and then you have a 7.5, you're like, oh well, that's just a little bit worse. No, it's like exponentially worse as you go up the scale. So a 7.1 is just, yeah, you can tell right there what you can go away now, or maybe not. Maybe you won't go away. So let's talk about this. So soldiers and emergency workers come through a badly damaged shopping mall and collapse houses looking for trapped survivors today after a powerful earthquake that killed at least 18 people, including a foreigner. I guess the others were locals. In southwest Japan, the magnitude 7.1 earthquake that hit a day earlier in the Kumamoto area on the southern main island of Kyushu also left at least 62 people injured, 6 of them seriously, the prefectural government said. The tally has been steadily growing, fanning fears it may continue to rise. Some of the most serious damage was at the Eon Mall shopping center in the town of Kashima, which was bustling with thousands of people when the quake happened. Somebody said some 3,000 customers were evacuated to a parking lot before a gas explosion happened in another part of the mall where some people were still working. Fukima Ono was shopping at a mall with her older sister when the ground shook so fiercely that she lost her balance and ducked. Children began screaming, goods scattered on the floor. The 19-year-old was among the crowd of shoppers who managed to escape safely. The sweltering weather heightened worries about the survivors as rescuers braved the heat. It remained unclear how many people might still be missing. The mall's second floor collapsed, trapping people. Witnesses said the explosion shook the area as much as the quake. 3 people remained missing, while 4 deaths were confirmed at the mall site, according to AM President Akio Yoshida. We take it seriously that an explosion happened and precious lives were lost. Yoshida told a news conference in Kumamoto where he bowed deeply along with 2 other executives. Japanese media footage of the mall showed that part of the ceiling had caved in and metal pieces and other debris were scattered about as helmeted and masked rescue workers searched the area. So there's more here, basically just talking about some of the survivor stories of that. And this is not too far off from when Venezuela had its back-to-back 7.1 and 7.5 earthquakes. I believe it was earlier this month. I think it was earlier this month when those happened. So
yeah,
part of that ring of fire where you get a lot of quakes, unfortunately.
Yeah, and have you ever been in an earthquake?
I've been in small ones, very teeny tiny ones. Nothing, shook bottles on a shelf, but nothing crazy. But I can understand how it's like the ground below you. It's not like you can get up on something and you'd be, like if it's a flood or something like that or a fire, you can escape. It's literally the ground below you.
Yeah, and I can imagine. I mean, to have your foundations shaken in that way has got to be just surreal and extremely distressing. I mean, of course, we know the devastation that they can cause.
And to a certain extent, too, that's why I kind of wouldn't want to live in Florida, not so much for the earthquakes, but they have sinkholes there, too. And I mean, just like you're in your house and then all of a sudden a hole opens up underneath and then, no, thank you. Give me some bedrock. I want some bedrock underneath there, something hard, something to keep the buildings up,
Yeah. Well, my heart goes out to them. But it's just, we have had the tornadoes. It seems like every time I turn around, there's a new disaster.
Oh yeah. Speaking of tornadoes, Chicago the other day, well, West and Southwest Chicago just got hammered. I mean, wow. I've never seen anything like that.
I was also looking at some reels of hail coming down. That was just crazy. The size of that hail.
I watched this guy, Max Velocity, and he's a meteorologist, and he gets video, like live feeds from storm trackers who are out there chasing. They're storm chasers, I should say, that they're out there chasing these tornadoes, and some of that video is just no. They had one where they had an actual drone go around and partially through a tornado. I mean, granted, it was a smaller one, but still, it was just like those things. Yeah, Mother Nature does not play, so we should stop screwing around with her, the ones who are actually screwing around with her.
Probably be wise.
Yeah, Dr. Donnie says in California, we're always waiting for the big one. No to sinkholes, yes. Yes. No to nature.
Yeah, sinkholes or something. I gotta tell you, my sister put up something on Instagram yesterday calling for help. There was this giant spider in her home. And she's just absolutely freaked out.
Yeah, that's why I don't want to live in Australia. I used to want to visit there. Now I'm even like, no, I don't even want to visit there. Because the spiders that are like this big around, and they're like, oh, that's a little one. You're like, nope. People have been saying nope to nuclear waste too, coming from these nuclear plants. And well, 5 states now. 5 states offer to accept nuclear waste in exchange for help developing nuclear energy. Okay. So 5 states have agreed to accept nuclear waste from around the country in exchange for federal help developing nuclear energy to create thousands of jobs. The states, Tennessee, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Utah, and Idaho, all have Republican governors who say they welcome the chance to pollute their states. To help America reclaim its leadership in civilian nuclear energy. What's up, Chuck? No nukes. Exactly. So if built, the storage sites would represent significant progress in a multi-decade effort to store more than 95,000 metric tons of spent nuclear fuel and radioactive waste. Plans for a permanent underground storage facility in Nevada's Yucca Mountain have long been stalled because of staunch opposition from most residents and officials. Yeah, everybody else is for that stuff, except for the people that live in the area where they want to put the stuff, obviously. Spent fuel is currently stored at nuclear plants and former nuclear sites nationwide and is piling up. New storage sites would move the radioactive material away from population centers, fault lines, and floodplains. Experts say the plan also should help officials gain consent from communities that will host the repositories. And well, you would think, now we're going to do it anyway. We don't really care what you think. Well, we live here. Well, that's too bad. Under the non-binding agreements, the states could host nuclear life cycle innovation campuses that would include waste sites as well as uranium enrichment, spent fuel reprocessing, and fuel fabrication. The campuses may also host advanced reactor deployment, power generation, and data centers. Data centers. Take a drink. It's our drinking game there.
We can't. There's nothing to drink. They take up all the water.
That's why Daddy needs his sauce. Nuclear campuses could boost state economies. The campuses have the potential to attract up to $50 billion in private investment. What could possibly go wrong? And generate as much as $10 billion in state and local tax revenues, the department said in a statement. Eligible projects could access federal loans worth billions of dollars, the department said. These campuses will be massive generators of economic growth and 3-headed fish, a la the Simpsons in the rivers. And be crucial to unleashing America's nuclear renaissance, Energy Secretary Chris Wright said in a statement. He called the proposed campuses an innovative concept that will get America's nuclear industry growing again. Of course, Tennessee is home to the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, which enriched uranium during World War II as part of the Manhattan Project, while Idaho hosts the Idaho National Laboratory, a key research site for nuclear energy and national security. Utah was a source of raw uranium for the Manhattan Project and a training site for crews that dropped atomic bombs on Japan in 1945. And apparently Louisiana just likes crazy stuff in their state. So they say, come on, bring it. No, I'm kidding. I don't think that's what happened. Or it might be. I don't know. Yeah. And so what's going on here? Yeah. The Yucca Mountain thing, that's been a thing forever. They've been wanting to dump that in there. And of course, people have said, no, we shouldn't do that. The alternative should be, if they're going to have nuclear power, is to do something with the nuclear waste where they can convert it into something that's usable and not detrimental, or have the possibility of getting into, water aquifers or anything that, polluting farmlands and stuff like that. It's kind of the same thing as like solar panels. Like I'm a big fan of solar energy, but you have these solar farms, and then when the mirrors break or when the collectors break, a lot of times you can't recycle those pieces and parts. So again, if you were able to do that and make a truly renewable energy source, then that would be something good. But I don't know. I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Yeah, and I'm concerned about that. And the other thing with the solar panels is the amount of energy that it requires to make them. And now you talked about you can't really easily recycle those components. Well, then you're going to need energy to produce cheaper energy to produce that those replacement parts. It's an issue.
Yeah, Michael, I don't know if you've seen the documentary Michael Moore did, The Planet of the Humans, and talking about renewable energy and how they were using non-renewable resources to make it happen. And it's like, look, I'm down with the concept of wind power and solar power, but if these things are going to break and then you're just not going to do anything with them, all they're going to do is just pollute the areas they're in with, whatever chemicals are in there.
Yeah.
We need to get to that part where we can make it a full cycle of recycling and reusing, rather than doing these things and then the technology breaks or it leaks, like in nuclear power. Saying we should put this nuclear waste somewhere, it's like, why don't you just convert it into something? Get your scientists on that. I know you don't want to really help people. You just want to do what you want to do for capitalism, but maybe actually doing something like that might actually help. It's
really the kind of the whole thing of kicking the can down the road. Mm-hmm. And at some point the road comes to a hard stop. Yeah. And then you got a cliff.
Yeah, it's a dead end in more ways than one.
Exactly. It is a concern. And, the things that people have talked about is, why didn't we invest more into creating homes that could hold energy? Mm-hmm. Or that could provide, and of course, people in the UK are finding out the hard way that doesn't always work if you have a heating, if the climate heats up, because now they're in homes that are made to hold heat. But that's not what they need right now. But the idea of developing housing that it makes it easier to control the temperature without having to rely on external sources. I mean, I'm all about central heating and central cooling, but that's things we just didn't think about. We were trying to make our homes comfortable and safe, which makes a whole lot of sense, but didn't consider the implications to the environment and how making that home comfortable now could make the climate even worse.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe they should have taken climate change a little more seriously back then, because they knew back then that the Earth was starting to heat up. So, speaking of heating up on Capitol Hill.
Oh, yeah. This is weird.
Anthony Fauci, that guy. The Timu Mel Brooks right there. There he is right there. So Fauci invokes Fifth Amendment. Oh, shocking. Declines to answer at Rand Paul hearing. There he is right there. He looks kind of like an older Alfred E. Newman, doesn't he? Like, what, me worry? And then you got this guy back here and he's like, yeah, you should probably worry. So Anthony Fauci, the former top U.S. infectious disease expert, declined to answer questions at a Senate hearing on Wednesday, invoking his constitutional right against self-incrimination. If he has nothing to hide, why would he be self-incriminating? I'm just curious about that. And accusing Republican Senator Rand Paul of an unhinged campaign to see him imprisoned. Under the advice of my attorneys, I will invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution to refrain from answering your questions. Fauci told the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, which Paul chairs, in his opening statement. Fauci declined to answer 15 questions from Paul, invoking his Fifth Amendment rights for each of them. Paul said Fauci was not allowed to plead the Fifth, that a pardon issued by former President Joe Biden would not protect him, and that there would be consequences for his refusal to answer the questions. Fauci, who led the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease for 38 years and became the face of the U.S. pandemic response, long has been the target of criticism by Trumpy and many American conservatives, and some on the left too. Trump, before the hearing, wrote of Fauci on social media his ideas were crazy. If anybody knows crazy, that would be Trump. He's kind of the expert there. Biden pardoned Fauci on January 19th, 2025 for any offenses he may have committed since 2014 in connection with COVID-19 or in his role as director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. The pardon does not cover subsequent conduct. The committee will have to consider after this hearing what appropriate action should be taken against you for the failure to testify after being directed to do so. It's against the law to obstruct an investigation of Congress. There will be repercussions to your refusal to testify today, Paul said. Paul then had one of Fauci's lawyers removed from the hearing after refusing to recognize his attempts to speak. In a statement, Fauci's attorney, David Shurtler, called Paul's pursuit an obsessive vendetta and said the accusations are false and disgraceful, and we will examine all options to hold him accountable. Shurtler said a verbal clash between Fauci and Paul at a 2021 hearing triggered an intense and seemingly pathological course of retribution, revenge, and obsession by the Kentucky senator toward Fauci. Paul for years has called for Fauci to be indicted and accused him of lying to Congress about whether the National Institutes of Health funded gain-of-function research in Wuhan, China, and of helping cover up the origins of COVID-19. Fauci denies both claims and says he has testified truthfully multiple times before Congress on these issues. So, I always found it curious that that Biden kind of gave him a blank pardon like that. No specifics, really. I mean, maybe there were, but I didn't see any. There were a lot of questions. Obviously, when the pandemic hit, there was a lot of censorship. There was a lot of questions people were asking, and nobody was getting the answers that they deserved to hear. There was a lot because it seemed like the government itself didn't really know what was going on too. Trump was at the helm at the time, so that's kind of par for the course. But and now here he is back again in front of Congress talking about this again. So you think something's going to happen to him?
I don't know that anything's going to happen to him. I mean, I think the blank pardon may have been that he saw what was coming and wanted to protect Dr. Fauci from, some people who really were gunning for anybody who supported the official narrative on COVID. As for the government, when at the beginning, not knowing what was going on, I can talk about that because I was one of the, I think I've told you this, I was one of the volunteers that was working the phone lines for the Chicago COVID hotline. And I can tell you initially, I was working with the Department of Public Health, and we didn't know what was going on. And it's unfortunate we had a freshman mayor and a freshman governor at the time. And so they were coming into their offices, and then they had to deal with this massive, and as people, and it was an overused word, but unprecedented crisis. And I remember, I was there in the center taking the calls, and we would stop for the press conference with Mayor Lightfoot and Governor Pritzker telling us, and their health people telling us what they knew. We really didn't know what was happening. I don't think anybody did. I think a lot of people were trying to do their best if this was going to be a serious problem. And I think it was a serious problem. But I think they were doing their best, but the messaging was not great. And I will say this, I had people calling in and saying, well, everybody's giving us all this contradictory information. It's changing from week to week. And I said, look, one of the things they're calling this a novel coronavirus. Novel means new. Everybody is learning at the same time. As soon as I said that to the people, they calmed down. They understood that. Okay, it's new. We're all figuring it out at the same time. That helped. But that messaging didn't really happen in the media. They used the word novel coronavirus. People didn't know what novel meant in this case. And so I think that the messaging on this was terrible. We can blame part of that on the Trump administration, but the media has to take a lot of blame for that. because it's the media's responsibility to make things accessible to the common person, to the average person. That did not happen. And now we're seeing the fallout.
Yeah. Years later, and there needs to be accountability, and I hope it's finally gets that finally happens. But you know, I don't know. There's a lot of accountability for other things too that never seems to come to fruition either. So, but we'll keep an eye on this and see what happens. Got a couple of robot stories for you there, Lainie. You like robots? Rock'em Sock'em robots?
I think they're kind of cool.
I used to have Rock'em Sock'em robots, and it was so great. And it play the Rocky theme behind, you know, like you know, the robots are playing. I was a weird kid. Trump administration bans new Chinese humanoid robots to protect U.S. AI build out. Oh, them Chinese robots. Bleep bloop. This guy right here saying, I wonder if I could get him to play thermonuclear war from War Games. Remember that? The Whopper computer.
Oh, I remember that. Yes.
Yes. WOPR. The Trump administration on Tuesday unveiled bans that target imports of new Chinese robots and power inverters, seeking to protect the U.S. AI build out from national security threats and reshore key industries slated for explosive growth. The FCC on Tuesday afternoon released the measures which bar Chinese imports of new humanoid and quadruped robots, in addition to connected power inverters, which enable renewable energy sources and batteries to connect to grids and data center equipment. The restrictions, as first reported by Reuters, show the Trump administration is aiming to safeguard the U.S. artificial intelligence supply chain from Chinese threats of disruption, data theft, and cyber attacks, while also driving firms to shift manufacturing to the U.S. These devices could create supply chain vulnerabilities that could disrupt U.S. economic and national security, and could create national security, take a drink, and could create a cybersecurity risk that threaten American critical infrastructure, the FCC said in a statement. The FCC will continue to do our part to secure America's critical supply chains. Chairman Brendan Carr added in the press release. Chinese embassy in Washington said Beijing urges the U.S. to heed the objective and rational voices of the business communities in both countries and stop smearing Chinese companies and threatening them with sanctions. Chinese government will take all necessary measures in response to any action that causes material harm to its interests. Some analysts forecast broad adoption of humanoid robots topped with AI-enabled brains. Brains.
Nom, nom, nom. With fava beans and a nice Chianti.
In consumer and industrial arenas, while explosive data center construction in the U.S. will depend on reliable sources of inverters. Treasury Secretary Scott Strait of Vermouth Besant has warned that Chinese AI firms could face U.S. sanctions for stealing U.S. intellectual property. That's funny. Wait a minute, I got a call. It's the pot. It says the kettle's black. Sorry. U.S. officials have also been keen to avoid another scenario as happened with rare earth minerals, critical inputs for tech manufacturing so dominated by China that Beijing has been able to leverage access to them to secure big wins on the international stage. You can read the rest of this from our Substack and the full article here. But this is just, I think this is just more Chinese scare tactics, and maybe the Streisand effect too, where it's like, yeah, China's doing all this stuff. It's like, well, really? What are you doing? I don't know, but it just seems like it's another crack at Chinese technology like that. Yeah, I can understand national security, but they seem to use that as just like a security blanket. No pun intended. That everything that they don't want to talk about and they want to ban, it has something to do with national security. This seems like one of those things.
Exactly. You know, I think it was a couple of days ago, I was reading an article where they were saying that U.S. needs to allow the data centers to expand, because if we don't, we're going to be dependent on the Chinese. And that's a national security
Yeah.
issue. And I'm not saying that it isn't, but I'm saying that maybe there are alternatives to all of this that don't involve, national security risks, but also don't involve sucking up water and, quadrupling people's energy bills. Because the data center is getting a break on their utilities that the locals have to cover.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
And as investigative reporter James Lee points out too, and others have too, that these data centers may not just be for your Chat GPT or your AI models too. It could be used also for surveillance of the American people. And that's something definitely people do not want. Speaking of stuff people don't want, they don't want robots in their schools. This is a little scary. This is a little dystopian for you. New York school district halts plan to use humanoid robot amid backlash. So this is the computer there. Kind of looks like Gavin Newsom a little bit from
you have a
California.
point.
Maybe
I know
do the hair a little bit better. This guy goes, "Oh, you're so beautiful. You're so beautiful." Maybe he's saying that. I don't know. I'm putting words in his mouth. A New York school district has walked back plans to introduce a humanoid robot at its high school after the proposal sparked backlash from educators and community members. The Salamanca City Central School District announced on July 24th in a social media post that its pilot project with Toronto-based tech company Realbotics had been put on hold while we worked through enhanced student data privacy agreements with the New York State Education Department and continue engaging with our community and stakeholders, ensuring that appropriate privacy protections are in place and incorporating input from our community are important parts of the process. We appreciate your patience, and we'll share additional updates as they become available. Added the school district, which is located on the Seneca Nation Reservation in upstate New York and serves a large Native American population. Last thing they want is robots. Reversal came after widespread criticism of the program, which would have brought a humanoid robot named Sally to Salamanca High School. According to a Realbotics press release issued in June, the approximately $58,000 robot with silicone skin and brown hair was intended to use natural conversation, facial expressions, and real-time interaction to create engaging hands-on learning experiences. I believe this is the android they're talking about right there, not the Gavin Newsom clone there. The robot aims to encourage student participation and provide early exposure to emerging technologies, the company also said, and to scare the hell out of children. And who doesn't like scaring children, right? Halloween, boo, but this is like Halloween 24/7. A little more than 2 years before Friday's announcement, Realbotics acquired Simulacra, a Las Vegas-based company that manufactures sex dolls.
Hands-on learning experiences.
Giggity goo, especially if it's sex education. Now I can see that. Use the sex dolls in your sex education classes, and then it would be apropos, as they say. The New York State United Teachers Union had condemned the plans, calling for high schoolers to be taught by a humanoid robot. A robot built by a company associated with sex dolls has no business in our classrooms. Melinda Person, the union president, pointed the obvious stuff out there in a July 23rd statement. Person added, our students don't need robots. They need real relationships with caring adults. Educators notice when students are struggling, celebrate when they succeed, and help them discover who they can become. No robot can do that, no matter how lifelike its skin or specific its regional accent. Lacey Pillblad, the president of the Salamanca Teachers Association and a teacher at the high school, also criticized the proposal, saying the Salamanca Teachers Union as a whole is concerned about the background of the company of Realbotics. We're very concerned about the security of the software that they're implementing and whether or not the data will be stored, how it will be gathered, and the recording capabilities. That's another thing too. Recording data of students. That's not creepy at all. Other educators also questioned why the pilot program was being launched at a school serving large Native American population. I have that question too.
I have a number of questions. That's among one of them.
Yeah, speaking to The Guardian recently, Sierra Mae Abrams, a substitute teacher at Salamanca High School, said, out of all the schools in New York State, let alone in the U.S., they chose to experiment on Native American children yet again. Abrams alluded to the history of brutality at Native American boarding schools in the U.S. and said, our culture is struggling to stay alive due to the impact of that and what they did to our elders. We live on the only reservation located in a city, so it's absolutely insane that we're the ones testing it out. Following the Salamanca District's decision to pause the program, Robotics CEO Andrew Kegel told the New York Focus, we fully respect any decision the school makes and encourage thorough due diligence by all parties involved. We want the program to be demonstrably safe, fully district approved, and strongly supported by teachers. We stand firmly behind the program as a supportive tool designed to assist teachers, students, not replace them. Yeah, I think you want to replace them.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I have so many questions. I think I want to bring the attention back to the fact that this is being tested in a school with a high Native American population. Yeah. What the heck?
Because they figured, oh well, they'll just let it slide. They're pushovers. They've been pushovers for all of history, and they haven't been pushovers, but that's just what they feel. But then again, because you try putting this in any other school in New York, they're just basically going to say, no, thank you.
They look like sex dolls. Look at the mouths.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Those here. Lips were made for something, and
he kind of looks like recent Mickey Rourke a little bit, right? After he had all that plastic surgery done and stuff.
It's the Mar-a-Lago aesthetic. But seriously, this is distressing. The other thing is, in addition to the fact that, heck, they don't. You don't have to pay them. You don't have to give them healthcare benefits.
Yeah,
you have to maintain them.
That's the bottom line right there. Why don't you put humans in there? Oh, because we'd have to pay them and give them benefits and, treat them as humans.
And speaking of treating them as humans, a robot cannot be held accountable for lapses and failures. And we know, for example, that AI and this kind of programming can have its own, for example, racial biases. Religious, all kinds of prejudices and biases that this robot could bring into the classroom. And you can't really hold the robot accountable for that.
Yeah.
It's not the way this works. This is not good.
Well, they can also be hacked too.
They can be hacked. Any basement dwelling child molester could hack them. They're recording information, surveillance, that all of that. Come on.
That scares me too. The recording and the data collection on these children like that is very scary. It's like, don't we have enough of that already with flock cameras and Axum cameras and stuff like that? Do we have to surveil our kids like that too?
Yeah.
Woo! It's and kudos to that school and the school district there for saying hell no to robots, and everybody around the country should say that too. Education has always been a human personal touch, right? It's like a good teacher knows their students, knows how to educate those kids, and no matter how much programming you do with robots, you just can't duplicate that. That's just
truly, I want to know who decided, who made the decision, who signed off on this. There does need to be accountability for the decision. I mean, I think it's a bad idea all the way around, but to put that into a Native American, a school that serves a largely Native American community, this is not an accident. I want to know who did it.
Well, someone who lived in New York, I can contest there's a lot of robots in the government there too, so I wouldn't be surprised.
That's true.
Some good news, though, for some municipalities around the country offering free transportation in their cities, especially in a time when you have high prices on everything else. I had been talking about this with a friend of mine in New York who says Mamdani is trying to get that done there. I know you're going to talk about that in a second, but let's talk about this free public transportation.
Yeah, and it's been in the news. I mean, this is something that I've been hearing about for decades. I've been hearing about why is public transportation not free? Why are we charging money for this? Particularly, and I'm sorry to say it, but people are paying increasingly high fares when the service isn't good. And there's no real way to get the transportation businesses or organizations or agencies to actually improve that service, and you're paying higher and higher fares, getting penalized if you don't have your fare on a card or something like that. It's not been consumer friendly. It's not been friendly to the residents. It's not been friendly to the public. And so the idea, why shouldn't public transportation be a free service? If we want to help the environment, if we want to reduce traffic and we want to reduce traffic injuries, and if we want to make sure that people can get around easily, let's make public transportation free and plentiful. And these efforts have not been terribly successful. Now, there are, I think, something roughly around 40 municipalities in the U.S. that do have some form of free public transportation. I'm in one of them, by the way. I'm in Bentonville, Arkansas. We do have a Ozark regional transportation service that does offer some free shuttle and bus lines through the area. They are very limited in how they operate. Very limited. There's Fayetteville right there. They have Razorback Transit, but there's also the Ozark Transit, and there are buses that you can link up and get between, say, for example, Bentonville and Fayetteville. And there's one bus that goes around downtown Bentonville, and that is free of charge. These services don't always work great. Among other things, they're not necessarily connected to things like Google Maps. I don't know about you, Uncle Warren. I don't drive. I don't have a car, and I've always relied on walking or public transit or now these days rideshare. But they're just not necessarily. It can be very difficult to get around if you don't know how to do it. And some of these smaller towns, these smaller cities have very limited apps, for example, that don't work well. They're using third-party services for these. Or you have Google Maps, which will give you some very good, if you're in a big city, will give you some very good information about routes and times and knowing when something is delayed. But a lot of these smaller areas like down here, they don't provide their data to Google Maps. So they're not necessarily the easiest to use services. I'll go into that in a second. But what's happened recently, first of all, Mamdani, as we know, had promised free public transit. That is not happening at this time. What he is trying to do is he's trying to make the buses faster, which I think on the whole is good, although I'd like to know about things like reliability. Okay, they're faster, faster routes, but are the buses actually showing up when they're supposed to be running? And are they ensuring that there aren't major gaps between the buses showing up? Are they safe? Are they clean? And this is one reason why people don't want to use public transit, is if they don't feel safe, or it's just a miserable experience, or they're unreliable and they end up getting fired from work. That doesn't help anybody. The other thing that's happened is Kansas City has ended its free transit program just recently. And apparently they were relying on a lot of funding, but some of this funding goes back to the pandemic era. That was one of that pandemic era funding has halted. And so they just have decided to drop the program. So that is a real concern for people who are trying to push for free public transit. So some of the things that I've looked into on this is What are the advantages of free public transit? And I've already mentioned traffic, helping people to get around, people with disabilities or people who cannot afford a car. Free public transit can get them around and ensure that they're getting to work and get cars off the street. Um, there have been limited experiments with this in the US. Some of the information, some of the data that I was able to come up with is that public transportation, free public transportation in Estonia, for example, it's a system, but what they found is that even more cars ended up on the street. So it's not necessarily a magic bullet for reducing cars. I think that people drive cars for a number of reasons, one of which is flexibility and privacy. And I don't know in a car culture like ours whether that's going to whether that's that particular benefit is going to result. Do you remember the movie Singles?
I was just
In the
about to
90s?
bring that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, where she's designing the tram to go around Seattle, and she said, yeah, so people could just park their cars, they can get in the tram and just go on. And then I can't remember who she's talking to in the movie, but he said, but I love my car. I want to drive my car.
Yeah, that was Campbell Scott. It was
Yeah,
actually
Campbell Scott.
Scott. He was the one who designed it, and he brings it to the mayor. They got him like 10 minutes with the mayor, Tom Skerritt, and everybody was telling him everybody loves their cars. Everybody loves their cars, and basically the whole project gets nuked, and he loses his job, and it's a terrible thing. But people I think, are very. We have this privacy culture. People want to be in their cars, and they want that absolute independence. I would like to see people pull back from that a bit. And we do know that Gen Z is less, or they're delaying getting driver's licenses, if having them at all. And one thing that we're also seeing is an increase in public transit, limited public transit, as well as free public transit in smaller towns. I was just reading about one that's in Maine, but you have these smaller towns that are doing some limited public transit. It's not an absolute answer from these communities because, for example, they may only operate Monday through Friday, or only during the day, or they're very limited as to where they go. And you might also have to utilize several transportation systems to get where you're going. If you're going even just a few miles out of town or something like that, you may have to spend hours trying to get back and forth between a place where it should be only 30 minutes. On the flip side of that, we know that there are places like Chicago that have extensive public transit, which is not free, but that is also very limited to the places where they want people to go.
Yeah, even then, you still, like, especially if you're trying to get to downtown from the north side or other areas, you have to take a train and a bus and then maybe another train. It's like multiple transportation systems that you have to use.
Absolutely. What has also been happening is there's been some research at this point as to how this impacts people, lower income people, when they have access to free public transportation. Now, the interesting thing is that it's not necessarily it's not necessarily something that is helping people to save money or to make more money. But what they are finding out is that people are actually happier when they have it. They feel less stress. And so the public health impact is in the reduction of stress and tension and improved mental health. And so that itself would be a reason. But what they're finding is when, like in larger cities like in New York, their governor is saying, look, we depend on this for our revenue. We depend on this revenue from these fares, and we just simply can't make this free. Now, this is frankly reminiscent to me of the arguments of why we can't have free at point of service healthcare. We do have free at point of service education because we understand it's for the public good. And my question is, why are we being so selective with this? Why are we saying, okay, we'll put the kids into school, but the second you start talking about keeping the kids alive through medical care, or ensuring safe, efficient transportation for people, which they absolutely need. We don't even have a decent train system in this country. No, and I'm not even talking about fare free. I'm talking public transit. Why is that something that should not be a priority in a government service, and where we're not trying to get all this income out of this? And another question for me is, I've heard the argument that's been put out is, if you have free public transit, the trains and the buses will be overused. They'll be overflowing. Too many people will be on them. Well, isn't that an argument for expanding a public transit system?
Yeah, get more buses, get more trains,
get more buses, get more trains, and again, people will say, well, it's going to be just homeless people. Okay, then, doesn't that also beg a question here? If we need maybe more housing.
Yeah. Well, you talk about New York. I can tell you this for sure, that Hochul's argument is really just out of line when they're paying their police department 10 to 14 billion dollars.
Yeah.
That's the budget for their police. So they're I don't know what it is here in Chicago. I'm assuming it's probably something nearly as much, but still probably an overwhelming chunk going to the police. Well, yes, we need police, but we don't need $10 billion worth of police when we have problems in other places, like Hillbilly Banjo. What's up, Hillbilly? Saying that the L train will derail when the overhead viaduct it runs on just collapses from rust. And you've seen the videos or seen pictures of those supports that are just all rusted out. It's like they're not taking care of the infrastructure for these transportation systems. But yet still they keep hiking up the rates, at least in New York anyway.
Yeah. They do. And this is something that happened in Chicago. I'm going to bring us back now into, hey, the music of Omen. Good to see you. I want to bring you back to what happened in the 90s in Chicago. So in the 90s in Chicago, we had, of course, the buses, but we also had the CTA, the Chicago Transit Authority, had the buses as well as the L system. Some people, there's some subway, but the elevated trains. These are the mass transit trains. And many of the stations, first of all, you had to pay to get into the trains, and many of the stations did have a booth that was staffed, and you could purchase your tickets there. You could also get a pass that would be that you could show. And if you needed a transfer, you could also purchase a transfer, the paper transfer. What happened is that eventually then on the trains we had conductors. There was the guy who was driving the train, the driver, but the conductor would walk up and down. They would collect fares if you got on at a station that did not have a staffed booth, but they also just kept the peace. They were not police. They were not armed, but I can tell you they took nothing off of anybody. But they kept the peace. There was and sometimes at night, they would bring in a private security with their little dogs and to try and, I guess, keep us all safe. They didn't do a very good job. But the point is that we did have a conductor. So if there was a problem, somebody would know about it. A human being would know about it. And what ended up happening is they said, oh, we are going to go strictly to a card system, a swipe card system. We're eliminating paper transfers, and we are just going to have it where you have to buy this card and swipe. Some stations will continue to have a staff person on duty, some will not, but we're also taking off the conductors. So, and we're going to make you, and you're going to be on your own. It's going to be a driver up front, and we'll have security buttons. We know how well those work.
They should have replaced them with sex dolls like they're trying to do in New York there.
Well, it might keep the criminals busy. I don't know. If they're getting some, maybe they won't be so angry. What happened was a disaster. First of all, at some stations, they had a customer assistant button. And if you couldn't figure out how to get your card, suddenly everybody needed a customer assistant. Nobody needed a customer assistance until they put these machines, these vending machines in place. And again, the trains, we had people openly smoking on the trains. Nobody wants to deal with that. And people became less safe. People became a lot more concerned about things. And they kept on hiking up the fares. And that continued to happen. Now, another thing happened, and they eventually stopped issuing paper transfers at all. And what that meant is that unless you had a card, you had to, and by the way, now the permanent cards that they have, the Ventra cards, are contracted through a third-party for-profit business that happened to be juiced in with the city of Chicago administration. It's funny to hear that, I know. But that if you're not using a card and you're using cash to pay on a bus or something like that, if you don't have a card, you have to pay full fare every time you're on there. There's no paper transfer that you can get. You have to pay that full fare each time. So it ended up for many people being more expensive if you lose your card. It just becomes something. If you want to pay in cash, and you're not near a place with a working vending machine to get your card, or you're not able to load it up on your phone because maybe your phone is broken, you're going to pay twice or even 3 times, depending on how many transfers you have to make to get around. And if you recall during COVID, and you weren't around for this, but we had a real problem in the city of Chicago with ghost trains and ghost buses. They were showing up on the app as arriving, and they were supposed to be arriving, and they didn't. And the CTA denied that this was happening. It got so bad that the citizens of Chicago actually set up a website and gave everybody QR codes to report ghost bus and ghost trains. And so again, the service has gotten worse. The experience has declined, but the costs have gone up. Another thing that also happened is that there were any number of bus lines and stops and hours that were cut, particularly in the poorer areas of Chicago. Imagine that. They said, well, nobody's taking these buses. Well, the problem is that they were not counting people who at the time were using paper transfers. They were only accounting initial fares. And this happened during the 90s when this whole changeover was happening. So there's a lot of ways that public transportation systems can pass things off, ignore real problems, and yet charge more.
Yeah.
My argument is going to be this. I think that there needs to be free public transportation in the same way, free at point of service healthcare. There are things that cannot be left to the individual. And there has to be significant and substantial investment. If we can give tax breaks to data centers, if we can fund the military at the level that we are doing, if we can fund and we can give tax breaks to big box stores and large corporations, we can fund the services that are necessary for a humane society. Unfortunately, the work that has been done in this area, in this country, unfortunately, free public transit that is very limited, that does not work very well, and that is depending on temporary grants.
Yeah. And they
Not
say,
the
well, see, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
You're starving it. You're starving it. That's why it's not working.
You've got a bad system.
Yeah. That's always the excuse, isn't it? That they say, well, we failed to fund this system. So look, see, it doesn't work. And it's like, well, if you funded it, maybe it might actually work. Meanwhile, the House just passed a $1.15 trillion military budget. But we seem to be able to do that no problem. Well, probably not too much these days. They've been having some problems with that, but yeah, the priorities are screwed up. Like healthcare and transportation, especially around like bigger cities like that. The U.S. government could subsidize a lot of this stuff if they really wanted to. But it just seems like with everything else, with cutting SNAP benefits, with cutting, all these social programs and stuff, it just seems like a collective punishment on people who are just trying to, they're just trying to live.
There have been, major attempts in Chicago to try and extend the L out to the western suburbs, or moving more west, and nobody wants that, and we know why, because they want to keep certain individuals living in Chicago from getting out to the suburbs, even though many of them have to travel that way to get jobs, to go to their jobs.
Yeah.
And when you consider, when you have a poor public transit system that doesn't really serve the public, where buses and trains are late or malfunctioning, people who want to keep their jobs are either going to have to get cars, or maybe move closer to work, but that doesn't always happen. Or they're going to have to add, in some cases, an hour or two to their commutes, whether they need it or not, because they can't risk being late for work. And this is...
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, and this is what's, and this is something that happens when you're poor. They say it's expensive to be poor. And it is. Because now you're losing even more hours out of your day that you have to pay extra for daycare, or get up extra early in the morning, not get enough sleep, because your public transit doesn't work. We can and we have to do better.
I want to show you, hang on just a second.
No, sure.
Yeah, shit. Sorry about that. I thought that was an image. So in New York, right? That's my point of talking about these terrible stations that they have, right? You've seen beautiful train stations from around the world, right? China, Russia. Let me see if I can get this over here. What is this? And they're just well maintained, and lots of people use them every day, and they seem to be able to take care of that no problem. Meanwhile, this is Chambers Street in New York, near City Hall. This is this is what we're looking at. And I when I came back to Chicago and saw the train stations are much nicer here than they are in New York City. Obviously, I mean, look at this.
Nobody wants to have to live like that. Who wants to see that? How do you feel about yourself when your government, says to you, "This is what you get"? Yeah, it's not good for people. And I'm seeing some good stuff in here as well. In the Bay Area, it costs just as much to drive as public transportation, unless it's a very long trip. As a matter of fact, I have not been on public transit in the Bay Area. It's been a while, but I remember, their system is you pay for the length of the trip. And if you happen to get off at if you miss your stop and you get up at the wrong station or something along those lines, you have to pay more to get out. If you lose your ticket, you have to actually get out of the station. It's like they fine you. And this is what they did. I don't know if they still do it, but they would fine you if you lost your card, or you didn't get the right thing, and you had to pay $5 to get out of the station. Again, what the heck is going on? I mean,
New York
it's Kafkaesque.
New York just raised their fares to $3 a trip, so you can go to stations like that, and the jam packed. Most of the time, especially rush hour, it's almost like those Japanese trains where people are kind of pushing to get in. There's less trains, and the buses are not much different either. I applaud. I'm always skeptical of politicians, but I applaud the efforts, at least, of Mamdani to get this initiative going for free busing, because there are so many low-income people that live in New York. That something like that would be a godsend to them. Would help immensely. Like I said, the buses, you can do transfers, but $3 for a trip is just insane.
A lot of people also just don't have it, and you're making a decision between eating and getting to work. That does happen. And yes, you can buy passes. And here's another thing as well. I mean, for example, I think in Chicago, they would have passes for people with disabilities. And a friend of mine who he didn't take public transit, but he did have a parking pass for the disabled. But it was he didn't have to pay for, I think, things like for parking, or he had paid reduced rates for parking. But one of the things he said is, look, I have a physical disability. I do not have a financial disability. Why are you charging the people with disabilities, who may or may not be people of means, less than people who are documented as being living in poverty?
Collective punishment.
Yeah, exactly. This is cruelty. There's a racial and class aspect to this, and it's demoralization. And I do believe that is where we're at right now. You can keep people down by simply giving them no hope.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to happen, particularly if you have to go to a train station that looks like that, or you have no way of knowing anytime you show up for a bus whether it's actually going to show up.
Yeah.
Whether it's going to stall for half an hour and you've got to explain to your boss again why it's late. Yeah.
And a lot of times they're not sympathetic. It's like, well, this town, you should know how the trains work, and it's like, that's cold. It's just cold. It's not even cold comfort. It's just cold.
Yes. And I believe at this point, folks know what they are doing. If folks are looking, there's a magazine out there, a newsletter called Streets Blog. And they do operate local franchises, I guess, I don't know, that talk about street and transportation issues in local communities as well as on the national level. They've got some really good stuff on this issue. If folks are looking for something to rally around, I think that this would be it. And I think it's something that could have a lot of appeal to a fairly broad audience. So something to think about.
Well, let's get to the prize keepers here. Some news you can use. Although I think this should be news that you are aware of when it comes to Nestle. Nestle's a little bit. I would be very skeptical of Nestle, but Nestle is pushing for simpler U.S. labels to shed Frankenstein ingredients. I guess the pieces, parts, that make up Frankenstein. Hopefully there's no abnormal brains in there. So as shoppers increasingly scrutinize ingredient labels to avoid products perceived as heavily processed, Nestle, maker of Nescafe coffee and Kit Kat chocolate, has been lobbying U.S. authorities to allow simpler descriptions using common rather than scientific names on packaging. Examples include replacing the words ascorbic acid with the more widely understood vitamin C in the list of ingredients, and beta carotene with vitamin A, to avoid consumers rejecting unfamiliar ingredients, even when they are naturally derived or considered safe by regulators. Safe should be in quotes there. Sometimes the way we have to describe ingredients in the U.S. makes it sound like Frankenstein food, a former senior Nestle executive told Reuters. In reality, it's actually a natural ingredient that consumers have a natural word for. Nestle has raised the issue directly with Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s team as officials review food labeling policies under the administration's Make America Healthy Again initiative, the executive said, asking not to be named. I wonder why. The lobbying effort has not previously been reported. Current U.S. rules often require the packaging is labeled with less recognizable technical terms with no notion of intended use, which can deter shoppers from buying products and have at times pushed companies to change recipes to remove some ingredients, industry sources say. Meanwhile, in Europe, labeling depends on the intended use. For instance, if an ingredient is used as an additive, it should be labeled antioxidant, ascorbic acid, or as a vitamin, ascorbic acid, vitamin C, or simply as vitamin C. A report by Innova Market Insights found last year that about 3/4 of North American consumers reconsider what they're buying because of ingredients lists on packaging. Most consumers look for real ingredients and an ingredient list that is easy to understand, according to the report. We continue to engage with stakeholders across the food industry on ways to help Americans make informed decisions about the foods they purchase and consume. The spokesperson for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services said, some public health advocates argue that using less scientific labeling can be misleading and makes it easier for large food companies to be opaque about including additives in their products. Food companies have spent billions removing artificial colors, preservatives, and additives as consumers switch to products with shorter, more recognizable ingredients lists. Nestle's technology chief Stefan Palzer confirmed to Reuters that the company was engaged in lobbying via trade associations to make labels less complex. But it's difficult, Palzer said. We try to reduce ingredients that are not understood by consumers whenever possible without compromising on the safety, quality, or functionality of the product. Palzer said consumers globally prefer ingredients that look familiar and products that have labels they understand. Some companies like Germany's Aldi are eliminating dozens of ingredients from what they sell so shoppers can feel good about adding to their carts. The former Nestle executive said the Swiss firm had talked to U.S. Authorities about specific ingredients amid a wider push to remove artificial products from food, suggesting it simplified terms for ones that it intended to keep in products. Nestle's lobbying is part of a broader industry effort to address consumer unease over ingredients. Industry groups, including the Americans for Ingredient Transparency Coalition and the International Food Additives Council, argue that technical ingredient names can unfairly stigmatize products even when the ingredients themselves are widely used and considered safe. Members of those groups include major food and consumer companies such as Nestle, Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, and Cargill. And while, yeah, I'm in favor of, like, if it's ascorbic acid, people ain't scientists. They don't have time to look up these terms. If it's truthful and you're saying it's vitamin A or vitamin C, that's fine. But if you're putting some other chemicals in there, you can't just smooth over that. Those you probably need to you should put the technical terms for those. Or if you just want to put in parentheses of a version of poison to simplify it, which probably wouldn't be a good idea for the brand. But yeah, it's like some things, you can do that, but some things you need to put the technical term for it.
I think that this has been poorly framed in media, particularly social media. For a while, you were hearing people say, well, if you can't pronounce it, it shouldn't be on your food label. Well, that's ridiculous. You can't determine the safety of an ingredient based on an individual's reading comprehension. And I might point out that hemlock is really easy to read and pronounce, but you probably don't want it in your food. But at the same time, people are saying, look, people have a right to know what is in their food. And by the way, alcohol is not required alcohol companies are not required to disclose what's in their products, just so you're aware. And there are all kinds of additives that, for example, for wine, that can be added and that people don't know about. Just thought you'd find that interesting. And I don't trust Nestle as far as I can throw it.
No.
And I do know that there have been some advances in food science. People have been want more what they consider to be more natural additives. So there are companies that are developing the herbs like rosemary can be used as a preservative. And those extracts can be put in, and that's interesting. People are trying to pull the dyes out. There's some reason for that. And so I think I'm all about simplifying the food label, but as you said, it needs to be one for one. I remember being at a diner, the Golden Nugget in Chicago.
The Nugget.
Yeah, Golden Nugget. But they had, they had for a while put up these signs on each table saying, we make our pancakes from scratch. And they put in the ingredients, flour and milk and eggs and baking soda. And then it said, this is what's in your package mix. And it gave a whole list of things, including riboflavin and thiamine, those dastardly B vitamins. But they were just using, because it was a longer word, and they were trying to prove that their pancakes which, by the way, do include all of that because the flour that they use is enriched. So I think that kind of language can also be used by quacks to scare people away from stuff. And simplification is great, but it needs to be one for one. It needs to be transparent.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, simple stuff like that, like something you can't really adulterate, like vitamin C. Yeah, you could say vitamin C. That makes sense. But yeah, when you're talking about other chemicals that are in there or part of your enrichment, you need to put the specific names for those things and just say, oh, some flavoring we put in. It's like, no, you can't.
Yeah.
It's
I think that, I think it's important. A lot of people have food sensitivities, and there can be some very good reasons to disclose common allergens and other things that can trigger that sort of thing. I do think it's also important to keep in mind, though, that you have food enriched flour, for example, or milk and that sort of thing. When they started adding that in during the Great Depression, that kept people from getting rickets and scurvy. And so for people who have very limited diets, sometimes due to poverty, but sometimes due to other factors, those foods that have been enriched can be absolute lifesavers. Also, the preservatives and the additives, you may not want them, but they can keep people from getting botulism. Not everybody has access to great refrigeration. So it improves the shelf life, less food waste. It's a trade-off. And I think that it's better to educate the consumer about that rather than to just dismiss it outright.
Yeah, I like what Chuck says here, like riboflavin equals vitamin B2. You could put both of that in there. You put riboflavin, and then in parentheses, you put vitamin B2.
Yeah, and eventually people might get it.
Yeah, it helps simplifies things.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the kiddies, the toddlers, are not getting, at least 80% are getting kind of messed up over these foods here. The new study shows 80% of foods marketed for toddlers are ultra processed. What's that about? Hey guys, I'm usually not a toddler unless he's a very giant toddler.
Maybe he's a robot toddler.
It could be. Keep them out of our schools. 4 out of 5 foods sold for toddlers in the U.S. are ultra processed, according to research that analyzed more than 2,700 products on grocery store shelves. Nearly half of those items also failed to meet at least one nutritional benchmark for children set by the World Health Organization. We wanted to know what parents were seeing when they went to the grocery store, said lead author Aaron Hudson, a postdoctoral researcher at the Department of Pediatrics at Children's Hospital in L.A. The answer is over 80% of the products are ultra processed, she said. Many of them are high in sugar, high in sodium, but parents really can't tell that from just walking down the aisle. Well, that's what clear labeling and instructions would help with. Consumer foods marketed for children between 6 and 36 months should have no added sugar, artificial sweeteners, or concentrated fruit juices, and limited saturated fats and sodium, according to the WHO nutrient and promotion profile model. We found toddler products which failed to meet WHO standards on sugar were 4 times as likely to be ultra processed, who said Hudson, who presented the preliminary research findings on Sunday at the annual meeting of the American Society for Nutrition. Almost a quarter of the foods were higher in sodium than is recommended, and some were high in fat and calorie dense, she said. These included organic foods. Yeah, that's something else you have. Just because it says organic, still be skeptical. So fruit pouches and oat bars are examples of foods that were high in sugar. Ready-to-eat mac and cheese bowls and turkey sausages were high in sodium and fat, and peanut butter puffs were high in sodium, fat, and calories, the researchers found. Problem isn't just what's in these high sugar, high salt, ultra processed foods. It's what they crowd out, said Jane Houlihan, research director for Healthy Babies Bright Future, an alliance of nonprofit scientists and donors with a mission of reducing babies' exposures to neurotoxic chemicals. She wasn't involved in the study, but she goes on to say a toddler who fills up on fruit snacks, sweetened yogurt, crackers, and snack bars is likely to eat fewer whole grains, vegetables, beans, and other healthier foods. The first 1,000 days of a child's life are vital for the growth and development of their brain and subsequent health. According to the American Academy of Pediatrics, a healthy diet is a key part of that progress. Early childhood is also the time when taste preferences are set for life. According to experts, eating too many overly sweet, highly processed foods in childhood may lead to choosing sugar and artificial flavors over natural, nutrient-dense foods in the years to come. Parents don't have to be on the baby and toddler aisle at the store once their kid is able to chew, said senior study author Marissa Burgermaster. Burgers. Assistant professor of nutritional sciences at the University of Texas at Austin. Kids can eat whatever healthy foods and snacks the family is eating. Just chop or mash it up. Burgermeister said industry has marketed these toddlers foods to make parents believe these foods were created for the health of toddlers, and it's just not true. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration proposed a rule in 2025 for a mandatory front of package labeling system for most packaged foods that would rate a food as low, medium, or high in added sugars, sodium, and saturated fat. At this time, however, foods marketed to children under 4 would be exempt from that requirement. The Consumer Brands Association, which represents industry, told CNN in an email that Americans' trusted household brands offer parents and caregivers a wide variety of safe, affordable, and convenient product choices to meet different dietary needs, preferences, and family budgets. There's currently no universally accepted scientific definition of the term ultra-processed food, a spokesperson said. Cherry-picking data to fit a narrative undermines the seriousness of the need for risk-based, peer-reviewed, and rigorous scientific processes. Yeah, I found that part particularly interesting about what a child tends to latch onto early on like that. And then that's why you start seeing a lot of child obesity, child health problems. A lot of times you didn't see that when we were kids, right? I mean, it happened, but you seem to see a lot more of that these days.
Yeah, and there were 2 things that really stood out. And first of all, the idea that, yes, a child's palate is being developed. And I have worked in various times in both the tea and wine industries, and people ask, well, what tea should I be drinking? What wine should I be drinking? And I point out that palates can be trained. And they can be trained at any time, but the children are particularly vulnerable at a particularly vulnerable stage. They have more taste buds than adults do, and so they're particularly sensitive at that point. And the French have historically had a very interesting approach to this. They take it very seriously, training a child's taste buds. Then school lunches, and children are expected to eat at school. They don't bring packed lunches to school. And the French government, they have a nutritionist or dietitian that reviews every menu and swaps things out from each school. They actually take samples from every batch of food that they make and seal them up so that if there is some kind of food poisoning that happened, they can send it off to a lab. It's quite fascinating. But they believe in training the children to eat good food. And one of the things that they do there, it's a very common dish in France, is they give a vegetable course, a vegetable salad to the kids first while they're hungry. So they're going to start eating vegetables while they're hungry. And so they're more likely to want to eat it. They have a grated carrot salad. It's a very popular thing with kids. Their kids love carrots. And so they do try to train the child's palate. And I think that this is really important. The other thing that I didn't think, it was brought up, but I don't think it got enough emphasis, is that there is no need for a separate category of toddler foods. There just isn't. This is marketing. They have marketed using packaging and colors and advertisements and things like that to appeal to kids, but they don't have a need for a separate category of foods. You can, you can cut things up into smaller pieces, and that's actually good for hand-eye coordination. The kid, learns how to eat that way. But you don't need that. That is purely marketing. It reminds me of the pink tax. Women will pay more for a razor because it happens to be pink or in a pastel color.
Yeah, I remember those.
You remember talking about that when they have a whole category of products just for women. I remember some company came out with hand toolkits and hand tools for women, and they were all in pink. Why in the name of all that's holy a woman needs a pink hammer is beyond me. But this again, this is the marketing here, using superheroes or fantasy characters, popular characters to market this stuff. It's big business to take a food and make it for one segment of the population. And
Definitely.
yeah, here we are.
Yeah, the mashing up like vegetables and stuff like that for the kids. I don't think a lot of people think about that. They'll just think, oh well, this is just convenient. I could just grab this. The kids like the pretty colors, whatever. And it's like, well, you're kind of feeding into that. No pun intended.
Well, I mean, again, and you don't even have to buy the toddler version. There may be something else that you can have that's cheaper. Or you can actually go out, instead of buying these kids yogurt cups, you can go out and get a big tub of Greek yogurt, which is high in protein, and then you can add fruit on your own, or you get a big tub of, say, a vanilla flavored Greek yogurt, which is already sweetened a bit, and then you can add fruit, and you can lower the sugar intake. There are all kinds of things that you can do to make a food more palatable for children, spend less money, and not feed into this idea that toddlers need a whole separate category of food. Come on.
Yeah. Let's move on to Cuba, who the Cubans are very innovative down there. Of course,
they really are. They have to be, but yeah.
Well, yeah, the last 60 years they've been blockaded and have had to work with what they have down there. And I found this article to be very interesting. So solar-powered tricycles help Cubans navigate fuel shortages and blackouts. Yeah, so the blackouts and the has been because of these blockades, they haven't been able to get fuel in for their power plants. And now they've, as they've done for at least the last 60 years, they've, turned lemons into lemonade. Cuba's iconic vintage cars have all but disappeared, and in their place, small electric tricycles, most of them made in China, have become the primary means of transportation for hundreds of thousands of Cubans grappling with prolonged fuel crisis. There are no ordinary electric tricycles. Many Cubans have outfitted them with solar panels, allowing the vehicles to recharge without relying on the nation's strained power grid. The three-wheelers are a far cry from the old-timers that only a year ago cruised the streets spewing clouds of black smoke, the old fuel-powered ones. This is how people get around now, said 40-year-old Lisa de la Cruz, who owns one of these vehicles. The triangles, with a cost between $2,000 and $4,000, are used to transport goods and serve fixed routes once covered by buses. While their price is out of reach for most Cubans, many have sold their older gasoline-powered cars to buy the tricycles. Others got them from relatives abroad, where they are generally cheaper, and some small business owners even use their profits to invest in them, expecting to recoup the cost. In January, Trump threatened to impose tariffs on countries that sell oil to Cuba, which produces only about 40% of the fuel it needs. Since then, a single oil tanker has arrived on the island in late March, down from about eight a month previously. The impact on daily life in Cuba has been significant. And yeah, so they've had to do that, but at the same time, what is it? Necessity is the mother of invention. Having solar powered vehicles like that, granted, small vehicles like that could benefit people in the United States too, especially.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah, like farmers and stuff like that. They could use it on their land, or if you're just like, trying to commute if you're in a rural area and you're trying to commute from one place to the other. Obviously, if you live in a place where the sun doesn't shine very much, it may not be beneficial, but in these cases, it might be.
And I'm also noticing, golly, who's helping out the Cubans right now?
Yeah.
Somebody who's trading with them right now.
Yeah, that would be the Chinese.
Yeah, it might behoove us to, not make the Chinese the good guys by default.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's like when the United States goes into countries, they usually bomb the hell out of it. And when the Chinese go into places, they're building trains and helping their infrastructure. It's like, it's optics matter,
Yeah,
right?
it
And
does.
when you see stuff like that, you're like, well, I think I'd rather go with the people building bridges than the ones bombing them. And you're going to see that as long as the United States continues to do that. But these trikes, though, like solar powered transportation like that, if you can modify it for like cities where you don't have like a big ass solar panel on there,
Yeah.
that once again, let's get our scientists then involved in making this technology happen. Even though your gas companies, your oil industries and stuff like that will definitely try to stop that from happening because they want you to, drill baby drill. How that goes. So
Yeah.
um
I love the idea though.
yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Speaking of energy, as we get back to the United States here and we go to the old recurring tide, the U.S. Energy Department, let me put this up here. The U.S. Energy Department orders more power resources for Western electric grid. What's this about? So the U.S. Energy Department on Sunday issued an emergency order authorizing the grid operator serving parts of 17 states to deploy idle power sources to help prevent heat wave blackouts. That's right. We're due for another heat dome too, coming up soon, if not already. Well, it's 73 here. I don't think it's happened now, but the order directed grid operator Southwest Power Pool to dispatch generation units as needed to maintain reliability for a territory that is home to 20 million people and stretches from North Dakota to Louisiana. The Department of Energy's order came shortly after SPP warned that emergency conditions are likely to persist during peak demand periods, underscoring the region's vulnerability to power plant outages, declines in wind generation, and disruptions in imported electricity. The order also authorized SPP to direct backup generation resources to operate as a last resort before declaring a level 3 emergency alert, which can be one of the final steps before a grid operator orders rotating outages. Those rolling blackouts. Department of Energy said it issued the order at SPP's request. The Trump administration is tapping into an abundant supply of unused backup generation to maintain affordable, reliable, and secure power for hardworking American families and businesses, said Secretary of Energy Chris Wright. The risk of rotating blackouts escalated in SPP during the past week. On Friday, a sudden loss of electricity imported from neighboring grids left SPP with razor-thin reserves for possible power plant outages and falling renewable generation in its territory, spanning parts of Arizona, Colorado, Montana, Nebraska, South Dakota, Wyoming, and Utah. SPP avoided outages that day by appealing for voluntary conservation of electricity to maintain reserves. They were doing that in New York too. Mom Donnie was saying, like, set your thermostats like 78 or something like that. But SPP expects the Western Territory's highest demand of the week on Sunday evening as temperatures rise above 90 degrees Fahrenheit, 32 degrees for you metric folks. Usually SPP is a net exporter of electricity because of its massive base of wind generation. Last week's heat meant neighboring grids could not provide much power to SPP because they face the same weather-driven high demand. SPP said its West region will remain until August 1st in a conservative operations advisory, which was issued to raise awareness of potential threats to the grid's reliability. Our West is likely to continue to experience advisories and energy emergency alert conditions, particularly during periods of high customer demand, SVP said. So, and, people argue about this, who is causing it. But one thing is certain, the earth is getting hotter. You could see what the unprecedented high temperatures in Europe. and these heat domes that we're getting this summer. Yes, people say, well, it's summertime, it's supposed to be hot. Yeah, but it ain't supposed to be this hot and for these prolonged periods of time. And now you're starting to see these energy grids starting to fail on them.
Yeah, they are. And I mean, the whole thing about asking people to set their thermostats at 78. I think people might have been more receptive to that if Taylor Swift hadn't taken over Madison Square Garden for her wedding. And I'm not trying to dunk on her or her husband, but come on. Yeah. Not a good look. Should not have happened.
Rules for thee.
Yeah.
Not for me.
And I can tell you that thermostat was not 78 degrees in there. I'm deeply concerned. I mean, that, the brownouts and blackouts, for many of us, it's an inconvenience, but for a lot of folks, it's a matter of life or death. If you're on equipment, then you have to have a backup generator, which costs money, and you have to have the fuel for that. If you have people out there who are, maybe they're gig workers, and if the power grid goes down, they're going to have a much more difficult time doing their jobs. And it's absolutely critical that we keep the power grid up. But what is happening?
Well, I'll tell you who's profiting off of it. Old Big Oil. They sure as hell are making a killing, literally and figuratively. Big oil profits set to double amid deadly heat. An analysis published yesterday highlights how the world's top fossil fuel companies are expected to rake in nearly twice as much in second quarter profits as they did during the first quarter of 2026, a windfall that comes as their polluting products help fuel extreme heat that kills hundreds of thousands of people around the world annually. Again, I just want to emphasize it's both things. You have the natural heating of the earth, but then these big oil is not helping one bit. In fact, they're making it worse as well. So Oxfam International's analysis warns that the profits of the world's 6 largest oil and gas companies are on track to skyrocket from $23 billion during the first quarter of the year to almost double $45 billion in quarter 2 as emissions from their products intensify deadly heat waves. Projected full year profits of BP, Chevron, Eni, ExxonMobil, Shell, and Total Energies amount to $147 billion more than their combined profits over the previous 21 months from quarter 2 in 2024 to quarter 4 last year. The report states, among the biggest winners, Chevron is expected to report that it has quadrupled its profits to $1,200 a second in the last 3 months. A second! While ExxonMobil's profits are expected to have tripled to $1,800 a second. $3 fares in New York to get on a bus and a train. Just saying. Oil and gas corporations share an outsized responsibility for the climate crisis. The publication continues. Emissions from BP, Chevron, ExxonMobil, Shell, and Total Energies were sufficient to cause around 1 in 4 heat waves reported globally between 2000 and 2023. Heat waves that would have been virtually impossible without human-made climate change. Conflicts like the U.S.-Israeli war of choice on Iran and the ongoing Russian invasion and occupation of Ukraine, as well as big oil greed, are among the leading factors blamed for spiking fuel costs. The military is one of the biggest polluters on the planet. Tuesday, the New York Times reported that top U.S. fossil fuel executives have sold nearly $400 million in their own company stock since Trump launched the Iran war on the last day of February. Fossil fuel corporations are making a killing, literally and figuratively. Mariana Paoli, Oxfam's climate policy lead, said in a statement Tuesday, as extreme heat, floods, and storms devastate communities across the world, the industry is preparing another bonanza of profits, she continued. Families are paying the price 3 times over, though, through destroyed homes and harvests, through soaring energy prices, and through a cost of living crisis worsened by dependence on fossil fuels. Big oil's greed is incompatible with a living planet or a livable planet, and unless governments rein it in, they will make a mockery of international climate targets, Paoli said. The report comes amid a summer of dangerous heat events in the U.S., including prolonged heat domes that we told you about that have pushed temperatures to life-threatening levels and contributed to at least dozens of deaths, as well as more record heat waves in Europe that have left thousands dead and fueled massive wildfires. There's more here, but you get the gist.
Yeah.
Cashing in on
Yeah.
something they're contributing to. And, when you try to go to alternative sources, you get browbeaten saying, what are you going to do? Put a solar panel on your car, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, we need these advances. I don't know about you, but I've seen a lot of these stories about people who have come up with alternative fuels. Some of these engines running on water, some of these engines running on nothing but air. And then the next thing you know, you don't hear from these people anymore. And, and we're going to get to that tipping point where there's going to be a point of no return because of this stuff. Well,
and then, at what point does the person not be able to keep their heat on, or keep their air conditioning on, or heat their water? At some point, the utility costs are going to become too much for a whole lot of people. And we're talking about a basic standard of living. And for many people, I mean, right now, for example, if you don't have your utilities on, that can severely damage your home. If you are a renter, you can be evicted for that. In some cases, you'll have leases that state you have to maintain the utilities, and if you don't, you can be evicted. Our homes are designed they're held up. I mean, the structure of the home it holds up with the expectation that it will be heated, for example. Without it, your home, you get mold, you've got all kinds of things. So what's going to happen then? And I'm looking at my utility bill. My utilities, the heat, we have, some of it is through the gas company, is through a separate service. But where I'm living, all the rest of my utilities come through the city, and it's all bundled into one thing. And I have watched my city utility bill go up $75 over between 1 month to the next, because it's been really hot, and I've got to keep the AC on. And this is a poorly insulated home that I'm living in, and I can do it kinda, but there are a lot of folks out there who can't.
Oh. And until they come up with more innovative ways of powering, heating and cooling your homes, the oil companies are still going to rake in the cash. So, yeah. And they're going to pay off our politicians to make sure that stays the same way. And speaking of politicians, yes, I am the king of segue. We told you about Mitch McConnell kind of disappearing into the ether. Yeah. Well, the governor of Kentucky is like, all right, put up or shut up. After 43 days of silence, Kentucky's Democratic governor calls on McConnell to prove he can serve or resign, or just prove that he's actually with us on this mortal coil. After weeks of sitting on his hands, Kentucky's Democratic Governor Andy Beshear issued an ultimatum to the state's absentee Senator Mitch McConnell on Tuesday: prove you're alive and can do the job, or step down. Since he was hospitalized back on June 14th, McConnell's 4.6 million constituents have been left with virtually no answers about the 84-year-old Republican's condition, leading to rampant speculation of a cover-up. There's also these pictures that were coming up saying, see, he's fine, but that's the pictures from 2023. Womp, womp. Some even pondered whether the former Senate Republican leader may have shuffled off this mortal coil altogether, but that his staff was keeping mum until the presumptive August 3rd deadline to avoid a special election that could lead to suboptimal results for the GOP, and possibly Thomas Massie filling that seat if he chose to run. Beshear, who has the power to call a special election to fill vacant Senate seats, has chastised McConnell and his staff for weeks for the lack of transparency about his condition, but he continued to balk at taking action, even as members of his party begged him to do something. That is until Monday, when McConnell's office released an update from his physician, which stated that the senator was undergoing a strenuous course of physical therapy and rehabilitation, but was not yet medically cleared to leave the rehab facility and return to the office. Bashir finally sent McConnell a letter demanding proof of life. He wanted that picture of him with the with the newspaper with today's date on it. So that's what I would ask for.
What timeline are we living in?
It's now been 43 days since news of your hospitalization, Bashir wrote. During that time, you've cast 0 votes, engaged in no official activities, and aside from 2 photos and corresponding statements, have made no effort to communicate with your Kentucky constituents or the nation. The governor noted that the physician's statement still provided no details about the 7-term senator's actual condition, including whether you can speak, reason, or carry out your duties as a senator. As your governor of the state you serve, Bashir continued, I am calling on you to directly and verbally address the people of Kentucky and provide proof of your capacity to serve or resign. Bashir said he'd sent the same letter to Senate Majority Leader John Thune, who took over McConnell's longtime role in 2025 before he announced his plans not to run for re-election. Bashir said if McConnell still proved unwilling to demonstrate his capacity to serve, he'd insist Thune, one of the few people who claim to have spoken to McConnell since he vanished from public view, fully investigate his condition. You know, there was the Republican said, all of them had 20-minute conversations with him. And apparently they all talked about the exact same thing. Funny how that works. All of this speculation and even this letter could have been avoided with a minimal amount of transparency. Bashir concluded Kentuckians are just asking you to be honest, which is kind of funny that he's saying that to Mitch McConnell, who tends to not be honest, even when he is conscious.
Well, you know, we talked about this a few weeks ago, and I said this could be very easily resolved by letting the governor come visit him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, okay.
If he's rehabbing,
he
can have visitors, so why not let the governor come see him?
Yeah, and he is, after all, the governor. This is so surreal, and I can't help but think that this is being constructed as being surreal to have everybody completely confused. So then after the deadline passes, where, you know, they would have to have an election, oopsie.
Yeah, this is total Soviet era propaganda, right? You know, when the Soviet premier would all of a sudden just not be in public anymore, and they wouldn't even say what was wrong with them. And next thing you know, you got a new leader, and you're like, wow, that's funny how that works. And I think it does. What's really important though is the August 3rd deadline. Yeah,
and that's critical. And we see what's happening here. But if you know, and somebody said it here, you know, Dr. Donnie does it, elder abuse. And yeah, I mean, if somebody's keeping this poor guy's body alive until then, yeah, I call that elder abuse.
It's like that movie Dave. Remember that movie Dave when the president
died? Kevin Kline.
And they got his Weaver. Body double to replace him. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that, I mean,
that would be awesome if they actually got a Mitch McConnell double to come back, but then he turned out to say, all right, I think we should have Medicare for all. I think we should have higher wages. And be like, who the fuck is this guy?
Well, you remember Kevin Kline's character. He owned a job agency, and he was going to offer America a guaranteed job program. Kind of cool.
And the people around him were like, no. But it's a good movie.
So it's worth seeing. Yeah,
it's definitely worth seeing. So BB is in the United States. If you're a big fan, talking to Trumpy, and according to polls, not a lot of people really care for him being here, but well, that's a story for another day. As Netanyahu and Trumpy hold excellent Iran-focused meeting in Washington. There they are right there. That's BB. There's Trumpy there with his pants kind of fat there. Come here. So Israeli Prime Minister and wanted war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu, wanted by the ICC and the ICJ, just so you know, held talks with U.S. President Donald Trumpy in Washington on July 28th, which was yesterday, with Hebrew media reports indicating that the premier lobbied for larger escalation against Iran. Mr. President, you're not getting your ass kicked enough. You need to get it more kicked. I'm paraphrasing. In a statement, Netanyahu called the meeting excellent, said it was one of the best conversations I've had with our friend and puppet U.S. President Trump. It was a meeting with full cooperation, with mutual support, with understanding on the joint goal that Iran won't have nuclear weapons and also other goals. The premier added. He also called it an opportunity to exchange ideas and also to coordinate on things that are important for the security and the future of Israel. The White House said in its own statement that the talks were productive and positive. The Israeli premier met with Trump for an hour and a half. It added Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Vice President J.D. Vance, War Secretary Pete Hegseth, Trump's envoy to the region, Steve Witkoff, and CIA Chief John Ratcliffe were also present, as shown in images released by Netanyahu's office. You saw those things there. Ahead of his arrival in Washington a day earlier, the prime minister had said his meeting with Trump would focus first and foremost on Iran. Hebrew media reports that have reinforced this since the end of the Trump-Netanyahu meeting. A senior official close to Netanyahu told the Times of Israel on Tuesday evening that the talks, despite touching on all arenas, were focused primarily on Iran. The official said it was a very good and very positive meeting, stressing that the two reiterated the joint commitment to prevent Iran from having nuclear weapons. And there's more here, yada, yada, yada. But you get the gist. He's in town the first time since I think they launched this war on Iran. And, kind of a sidebar here. Mamdani in New York said he was going to try to arrest him. And which technically I don't think he can, because if if Lethal Weapon 2 has told us he has diplomatic immunity.
Yeah.
But here's the caveat. Apparently that doesn't apply to Nicolas Maduro, who is the head of another country, Venezuela. They kidnapped him, brought him to the United States, and arrested him. But apparently he didn't have diplomatic immunity because he was apparently a narco-terrorist, while you have Benjamin Netanyahu, who's wanted by the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice, who call him a war criminal. So what's the difference?
Well, I'd point out also Maduro's wife was also kidnapped in the dead of night and transported to another country and is being held. And she is not an elected official.
No, she is a civilian.
Yeah.
But she's married to a head of state, which means she would have diplomatic immunity as well, right? Or am I off with that?
I have no idea. That I don't want to comment on, but it's just one of those things that's sticking in my craw.
Well, apparently things like that and the Iran war is sticking in the craw of the American people. I do my Foster Brooks impression there. Mm-hmm. As U.S. support for Iran war falls to 1/3, according to Reuters Ipsos poll. Stop it. I don't know where that is. Oh, that's where is it? Oh, I didn't say. Oh, this is in Tehran.
Yeah. Very good.
Their troll game is
they're
very good.
Yeah.
They do good. If you haven't seen those Lego videos,
those are great.
So good. So support for the U.S. war on Iran has fallen to its lowest level in a Reuters Ipsos poll since the early stages of the 5-month-old war, with only 1 in 3 Americans backing the military aggression and a majority saying Trumpy has not clearly outlined its objectives. What? Trump being vague about stuff? Opaque? That's odd. The nationwide poll conducted from Friday through Sunday also found that Trump's approval rating rose 3 percentage points from last month to 37%. After reaching the lowest level of his presidency in the previous survey, which is mind-boggling, but okay. Trump has presented several objectives for the war, including eliminating Iran's ballistic missile capabilities and preventing Tehran from developing a nuclear weapon. However, 69% of respondents, including 4 in 10 Republicans, that's impressive, said Trump had not clearly explained the goals of U.S. military involvement in Iran. White House spokesperson Olivia Wales said the president would not base his decisions on fluid opinion polls and reiterated his commitment to preventing Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon. What matters most to the American people is having a commander-in-chief who takes bold action to keep them safe, said the propagandist. Yeah. So, especially with high gas prices being a result of this, people are not too fond of Trumpy anyway, particularly with these tariffs that have made everything sky high too. In fact, I read something, I can't remember what the source was, but they said like these have been the highest prices on, relatively speaking, on food within like 50 years, something like that.
Yeah, and it's been a lot. I mean, thank goodness for clearance aisles in cases.
Dollar stores,
yeah.
People have been doing the Dollar Tree thing a lot lately.
Yeah, and fortunately, I live near a store that has a lot of clearance, and they mark it clearly. And I live close enough that I can actually visit a couple times a day. And as soon as something goes on clearance, I can grab it. I want to also remind folks is that a whole lot of people, including Gen X, for example, and boomers, of course, but Gen X in particular, we really remember the Cold War, and we remember the relief when it ended. And now seeing the nuclear threat come back, and we're not real happy about this. So it doesn't surprise me that people are really upset about this. Because I think that people are not seeing this as preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, but more that we're increasing the likelihood of a nuclear weapon being used, not necessarily by Iran, but by any country that has a nuclear weapon. And I cannot, the fact that these people are willing to play around with civilization this way is astonishing to me. And I think this is why people are getting so cranky.
Just remember, kids, Israel has nukes too. Just saying, just putting that out there. Speaking of Trumpy, put on your waders. We're going to the press pool and we're going across the big pond there to the UK as UK journalists self-censoring stories about Trump and the right over safety fears. Yeah, because you want journalists scared and not reporting the facts. That's, oh, wait, you do. I'm sorry. You want them to be reporting. So journalists are self-censoring their reporting on right-wing protests, Donald Trump's administration, and trans issues because of growing concerns about their personal safety, with newsrooms accused of normalizing the risks they face. Hundreds of journalists from across the UK have anonymously disclosed increasing nervousness over their security. Some have reported avoiding or altering coverage on certain topics due to intimidation, leading to self-censorship and a narrowing of the public conversation. The findings are revealed in a government-backed investigation into the safety of journalists ordered amid growing hostility to traditional media across the West. There have definitely been times where there's been a story that's maybe in the public interest, maybe worth reporting on, where we've had frank discussions about whether it's worth it, one journalist said. Another said, I was definitely looking over my shoulder and making sure I wasn't being followed and making sure that people weren't going to start shouting things at me. Investigators found a widespread belief that abuse linked to reporting has increased, especially online. They also reported newsroom cultures that treated the increase as inevitable, given the polarized political environment, with journalists expected to be thick-skinned. Female journalists faced the brunt of abuse, describing gendered and sexualized harassment, explicit threats, inappropriate messages, and online comments focused on appearance. Common topics raised by journalists as causing safety concerns were right-wing anti-immigration protests, the Trump administration, including protests against ICE, as well as trans issues. Anti-immigration protests were most widely referenced by journalists, both regarding the in-person risks of attending the marches and the backlash to any subsequent reporting, the investigation found. Similar findings have been recorded in the U.S., where the International Women's Media Foundation found journalists were working in heightened political polarization, declining public trust in the media, and increasing exposure to physical and psychological risks. There are numerous accounts of journalists in Northern Ireland facing intimidation from masked men while covering anti-immigration riots, disclosed to the UK's National Union of Journalists. In another case, footage of a journalist covering an anti-immigration protest was circulated in a Facebook group with people working together to identify and locate them. One respondent described seeing a female journalist subjected to misogynistic heckling at a Unite the Kingdom rally, with the footage later uploaded to social media. With debates about the personal safety of reporters now a regular discussion point in the newsrooms, ministers ordered an investigation by Alma Economics. It amounts to one of the most comprehensive assessments of journalistic safety ever produced in the UK, surveying 531 journalists alongside 55 in-depth interviews. Almost half of those surveyed said safety concerns influenced their willingness to report on certain stories, while about a third had changed how or what they covered. And this isn't new, but it seems more concentrated. When I was talking to my buddy Don Culpepper last week on Extra Bull Alive.
Great show. Everybody should check it out.
Thank you. He's a wealth of information, and he was an investigative journalist in northern Mississippi, and he talked about the risks that reporters face, especially like in smaller towns like that, where everybody knows what's going on. But it's, the article here talks about being thick-skinned. It's kind of like police work. You kind of have to know what you're getting into when you're becoming a reporter, and whether you're willing to take those risks in reporting the truth. And now you have like Trump, who's been saying, the lamestream media and stuff like that. And to be fair, the mainstream media itself has been a bit of a propagandist tool for certain people, but not all journalists are like that. Particularly a lot of the independent journalists who don't, rely on, millionaires to back their things, if they're just, they're reader funded type outlets. And then you look to, what was going on in Gaza, where you had these Palestinian journalists literally fearing for their lives to report what was going on there. And that reporting, even though there was like 200 something journalists there died or were killed, were murdered. And but their reporting got that information out to the rest of the world. And that's why you're seeing this flip on support for Israel. So the importance of journalism there, especially in today's society, you run the risk of people who are brainwashed by these people who want to control the narrative, and it often leads to violent situations.
And that is something that I think, in the UK and in the US, we haven't been as used to. Journalists around the world historically have suffered terrible recrimination for their reporting. It's a very dangerous profession in many areas of the world. And now it's coming home to roost for us. And I will say this, I do think, if you're going to be a journalist, if you're going to put yourself in the public eye, you have to have a thick skin. But thick skin doesn't defend against bullets. It doesn't defend against a knife attack, or that sort of thing. And this is where, unfortunately, I think media companies, they've become so corporate that they're more interested in paying off shareholders than they are protecting their journalists by providing appropriate security, following up with the police, or engaging private security services, private investigators to protect their journalists. And it leaves the journalists, their heinies are left out in the air, while their bosses can rake in the money that the journalists are making for them. So it is very disturbing to see this. I don't have a good answer or a solution for it, other than, support your independent journalists and find out what they need. There may be some things that independent journalists in particular can do to improve their security situation. Also, there needs to be a wide condemnation of the harassment of journalists. And I have seen, for example, so-called left-wing groups and individuals who have harassed journalists, threatened journalists who are trying to cover a protest. Guess what? You're out in public protesting. You can expect the media to show up. And if you don't want people to see you doing it, you shouldn't be doing it. That holds for everybody. and there's zero
oh.
tolerance for this. Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to radio news as AM Act fly-in recap. State broadcasters make one urgent ask. State Broadcasters Associations are among radio's most valuable advocates, and this month's AM Fly-In put that dedication on display. Radio Inc. caught up with 3 leaders whose associations spent last week pressing Congress for a vote on the AM Act. The bill, which would require automakers to keep AM radios accessible in new vehicles, cleared the House Energy and Commerce Committee by a 48-1 vote in May after being folded into the larger Motor Vehicle Modernization Act. Its House companion, H.R. 979, has drawn more than 260 co-sponsors, while the Senate version, S. 315, has advanced through the Senate Commerce Committee. Broadcasters are now pressing congressional leadership to schedule a floor vote before lawmakers turn fully to midterm campaigning. Oklahoma Association of Broadcasters President and Chief Executive Officer Will Payne made his second trip to Washington since taking the association's top seat, this time meeting one-on-one with members of Congress. 6 of Oklahoma's 7-member congressional delegation, including both senators, are co-sponsors of the bill, Payne told Radio Inc. Really honed in on just trying to say this is important to our Oklahoma broadcasters. There wasn't a need to sell our membership on it. It was more of a need to say the urgency is now that we need to push leadership. I just didn't feel like we needed additional support. We're good. Didn't feel we needed additional support. We're good. We just need to go to the next step of pushing leadership. Payne said the fight now extends beyond AM. This is existential that we get this done because this is a threat to all of radio in the dash, he said, according to your dashboard. Pointing to automakers that have also begun removing FM radios, with Oklahomans very, very vocal and active on preventing over-the-air radio removal, which is ridiculous. Payne said Oklahoma broadcasters ran a coordinated public awareness push around Fly-In Week. We had a groundswell back home. I was on channel 459, Oklahoma Educational TV, AM and FM stations across the state of Oklahoma. That's something that we have not seen, if not ever, in a long time, showing our support of one subject. We came away with continuing to raise this issue, and now we're continuing to follow it up with additional interviews, whether that's live, local radio, and TV here in Oklahoma or nationwide. So more in Alabama, and then there's Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about this before, too, about getting rid of AM radio, but getting rid of FM radio, that's why would you want to get rid of FM radio?
Because they want to sell you a subscription to Sirius FM or whatever alternative service, or they want you listening to Spotify or whatever it may be. And as you see there, we have Massachusetts, we have Alabama, we have Oklahoma. Donald Trump, stop clocks and all that, wants to get this bill passed. Ted Cruz and Ed Markey, they're the co-sponsors. This is a bipartisan bill. And we've been reporting on weather problems right now. And, in situations where the grid goes down, if you want to get public information out there, your best option is the radio. I do not think that the radio, that's the only reason to keep radio. Radio for many areas is an excellent source of news, culture, information, entertainment. It's free, it's entirely accessible, and radios don't use that much energy. In fact, there are solar power and hand crank radios for emergencies, and batteries work just fine. But I wanted to make people aware, that's why I included this, that now everybody's trying to get this done with before everybody's focused on the midterms. We need to get this bill passed. If we want to keep local media alive, we need to do this.
Yeah. Definitely. And just to address a couple of comments here from the last story we were talking about. Yipper says, I don't like them, dunk on them. Yes. And Chris, good to see you. I find that some of the leftists don't trust right-wing journalists when they cover protests because the right-wing journalists are coming with the express purpose of misrepresenting what they're reporting. That's why I always say it doesn't matter which political slant or if they're left or right. always be critical of your journalists, right? You don't have to be paranoid, but you can be skeptical. Find out, go to their websites, go find out who's funding them. If it's just purely, viewer or listener donors, you're probably going to have more of a legitimate journalistic source that you can rely on, right? But even then, sometimes journalists tend to get swayed later on. Maybe they are truly independent and just trying to do good, and then something else happens along the way. That's why, that's why I say sleep with one eye open. And when it comes to, journalists like that, it's okay to be skeptical of them, especially if they're pushing particular narratives too. So, go to the clownfish school. I wonder if they have sex robots at that school. Probably not, right? Let's hope not.
Robotic fish,
maybe robot fish. That sounds like some Nikola Tesla stuff. So this coming from eBay. eBay agrees to pay nearly $50 million to a couple who sent cockroaches and a bloody pig mask. This is some dumb shit, I swear to God. So eBay Incorporated agreed to pay almost $50 million to a Massachusetts couple who said former employees of the company targeted them with threats and bizarre anonymous deliveries, including live insects, a funeral wreath, and a bloody pig Halloween mask, according to settlement details released Tuesday. The parties reached a tentative settlement in February as the case was headed to trial, but they were unable to finalize the agreement. The Steiners, I guess that's the couple that's involved in this, asked a federal judge in June to reopen the case, and a new settlement announced Tuesday resolves the litigation. The agreement with David and Ina Steiner, founders of E-Commerce Bytes, a newsletter covering the e-commerce industry, includes an additional $7 million in charitable donations, including to organizations supporting First Amendment rights. Attorney Christopher Murphy said the resolution sends a warning that attempts by big business to suppress speech and the press will not be tolerated. This is not only an attack and campaign of harassment against two people, it was also an attack on free speech and freedom of the press, said Murphy of Massachusetts Bates Scally Murphy Law, not Murphy's Law, the movie, or was it Murphy's Law? Wasn't that the TV show? I can't remember.
Murphy Brown.
That was Murphy Brown. Sorry.
Yeah.
That was another Murphy. The settlement she was a journalist. Settlement contains no confidentiality provision allowing the Steiners to discuss the case publicly. Murphy said his clients insisted on being able to speak openly about what happened to him. The settlement resolves more than 6 years of criminal and civil proceedings stemming from the harassment campaign. In their 2021 lawsuit filed in Boston federal court, the Steiners said that the company engaged in a conspiracy to, quote, intimidate, threaten to kill, torture, terrorize, stalk, and silence them in order to stifle their reporting on eBay. The Natick, residents who report on the e-commerce industry in their newsletter said they were subjected to cyber stalking, death threats, and in-person surveillance by former eBay workers. The settlement also requires eBay to issue a public statement addressing the conduct of former executives involved in the case. When the lawsuit was filed, the company said the misconduct of these former employees was wrong and that it would do what is fair and appropriate to try to address what the Steiners went through. eBay reiterates its apology Tuesday, saying what the Steiners were subjected to by former eBay employees in 2019 was wrong, reprehensible, and should never have happened. The company also acknowledged the unprofessional tone in internal communications by former CEO Devin Wenig, former Chief Communications Officer Steve Weimer, and former Senior Vice President Wendy Jones. The company said the conduct is not representative of eBay's culture and said it has since changed leadership and strengthened its policies, procedures, and ethics training. I wonder if they got the same training as ICE did. Yeah. Remember they were supposed to get retraining? Yeah, I'm sure about that. Yeah. So in 2020, federal prosecutors charged 7 former eBay employees, alleging they carried out a coordinated harassment campaign against the couple after becoming angered by coverage in the couple's online newsletter Most of the defendants pleaded guilty to charges including conspiracy and cyber stalking, and were later sentenced to prison terms or home confinement. In 2024, eBay agreed to pay a $3 million criminal penalty under a deferred prosecution agreement with federal authorities. So, like we said, the prosecutors said the harassment included anonymous delivery of items like live cockroaches and spiders, a funeral wreath, bloody pig face mask, all that. The employees also sent pornographic magazines with the husband's name on them to a neighbor's home and planned to break into the couple's garage to install a GPS device on their car. And there's more here, but my God, eBay people, what the hell?
Yeah, I reported on this for Hard Lens on my Civically Minded show way back in the day. This has been going on for a while, this particular case. And it was one of those things that, I mean, you're looking at it and you can't believe it's real. It's not approaching the whole Mitch McConnell thing, but by gum, was it weird? And it still is. The fact that, people had to be retrained in ethics, no ethical person would ever do something like this.
Yeah, don't retrain them. Just don't hire psychos.
Yeah, but I mean, what? But again, we were talking about journalism. And I mean, and this is not even political journalism. This was a company that was basically helping out eBay sellers by reporting on what was going on at eBay, because for many people, that's their business. They sell on eBay. And the fact that these independent journalists were subjected to this, I mean, this is a C-suite.
Anybody being subjected to that. I mean, not just people with an online blog like that. I mean, my God, breaking into their garage, putting GPS devices. Somebody needs to go to jail.
Yeah, and they should have been. Yeah, this is a story that, again, you just left me flummoxed then, and I'm flummoxed now.
This is flummoxing too. When you have mile high preachers.
Oh, that's good. That's good, Uncle Warren.
The Mile High Club, getting closer to God. That's what it is. So evangelicals are force feeding sermons to air travelers. I just love a captive audience. Oh boy.
Yeah. Here we are.
In an effort to expand their proselytizing, evangelical Christians have taken to waiting until packed airliners are in flight before bearing witness to unsuspecting fellow travelers. It's not a good sign when you're on an airplane and somebody's praying for your soul. I mean, I'm just saying that kind of,
saying.
It's a little bit. According to the Washington Post report highlighted by Hemant Mehta of the Friendly Atheist Substack, evangelicals are unapologetically taking center stage on flights thousands of feet in the air with passengers at their mercy. Those evangelical preachers are also filming their witnessing for social media clout. In an interview with the Post, Whitney Lynn, an evangelist, producer, and singer-songwriter from Orlando, confessed she makes a point of speaking on all her flights, explaining, "They have no choice but to hear the truth. When I have a gift and I have a life raft, if you're drowning, I want to give you that life raft so you can be saved." Brett Rao, a Maine-based music artist and producer, said he has been nervous before urging people to seek Jesus on planes. He feels compelled to follow the biblical teaching to go into the world and preach the gospel to all creatures. He said he only speaks up on a plane when he feels led by God to do so and takes seriously the thought that anyone could be spending their last days on earth. Yeah, again, you really don't want to put that paranoia into a plane full of people who can't escape unless they have a parachute.
Yeah.
Mehta of the Friendly Atheist wrote on his social media platform that there is little airline staff can do to stop this. There's unfortunately very little airline staff can do to stop this. While there are rules regarding passengers who are disobedient or belligerent, preaching doesn't necessarily cross a line, unless you're an atheist, I guess. Flight attendants can politely ask them to stop, but I have yet to see any examples of plane preachers getting kicked off flights because they won't shut up, he wrote, noting that in a separate TikTok video that Lynn bragged, I just love a captive audience, he observed. The fact that the sermons are unwanted doesn't bother the evangelists at all, because for once they have an audience that can't walk away, and the hope that strangers might convert outweighs any concern that they'll conclude Christians are lunatics. I think this would probably reinforce that fact if you're not allowed to get away from it, which means we're just stuck with the possibility Christians may hijack a flight with their voices. Yeah. So if I'm on a plane and somebody starts preaching, I'm just like putting on my headphones. Yeah. I don't want to cause any kind of like physical confrontation, but that's just, if you're trying to genuinely get to people's souls, that ain't the way to do it. Yeah.
Well, I agree. And the thing is that they point out there, first of all, you said, we've never seen anybody being kicked off a flight. Well, you can't really kick them off a flight unless you're sending them out the emergency door, and they're going to, go Argentinian style on the.
Hey, the Lord will take care of them, right? That's.
What I worry about in this stuff like this, not only is it just annoying, it's rude, but it's a violation. The other thing is that, okay, they're going to get a situation where somebody is going to object, and they're going to object strongly. And this can result in a plane. That's a very dangerous situation when you have that kind of you have a physical confrontation. There's not a lot that the flight staff can really do. There's an air marshal possibly, but there's always the risk of other people getting hurt. Come on, this is not what we need to be doing. And I would actually suggest that airlines should say, look, if somebody is speaking loudly and disturbing other passengers, the flight crew has the absolute right to use their judgment, to ask that person to stop, and inform that person that if you don't, we're going to have to redirect the plane and have you taken off and arrested and put you on a no-fly list.
Yeah, and maybe just, some people just want peace and quiet on a plane. They don't want anybody preaching or talking to them. You have the crazy Karens that kind of do their things, and they'll take the crazy Karens off because they're disturbing the peace on the plane.
Yeah, don't disturb the peace.
Right. I don't care if you're a Satanist and you're preaching the virtues, or the anti-virtues of Satan. You're still disturbing people with your voice. Don't do that. Yeah, it's a plane. It's not a church. I mean, I've been to the airport. I've seen the Hare Krishna there, and you can get away from them. They're just sticking out flowers. They're like, yeah, you want a flower, Krishna, Krishna. I've seen them in the subway station. You walk by them, they're not like all up in your face and stuff like that. To say you have a captive audience like that, it's just, if you're truly a Christian trying to help people and save their souls, you're just going to piss them off. I'm just saying, that's a tip from your Uncle Warren. Don't piss off people if you're trying to, help them and want you to, listen to them. So, that's crazy. That's crazy. Finally, have you ever done Pokemon? I don't know anything about this Pokemon thing. I remember a while back, there were people, they get their phones and they
Pokemon. That was fun. That was a lot of fun. Was it the geolocation kind of thing? Oh, look, there's one here, and they have the cards too, apparently. I don't know. Ever since Pound Puppies, I was just like, I kind of checked out when it came to that kind of stuff. But Pokemon card stores are using facial recognition to prevent scalping. There it is. Pokemon Company revealed facial recognition technology will be used at 5 pop-up Pokemon card store locations in Japan to enforce card restrictions. The company announced the pop-up stores will operate July 31st, which is Friday, through August 6th at Aeon Mall. Is that the one that got? Oh no, it said Japan. I think that's the mall that got. Maybe that was another mall there. These malls, Notori, Chofu Parko, Mall Higashiru, Mall Hiroshima Fuku, and Mall Chiksushino, and will feature exclusive Pokemon trading card games, cards, and Pokemon Center merchandise. That's so confusing. Customers of elementary school age or older will be required to undergo a facial recognition scan before entering the store. The scans will ensure each customer only enters the store once per day, with anyone attempting a re-entry being turned away at the door.
you need to leave the store temporarily, for example, to use the restroom, please be sure to inform a nearby staff member before you leave. The company says, please note that if you leave the store temporarily without a staff guidance or confirmation, you will not be allowed to re-enter. Pokemon Company says the scans are being performed to provide a safe and secure shopping environment for all customers, to prevent crime, and to ensure compliance with appropriate entry and purchase rules. And, we talked about this last week about stores doing that for shoplifters.
Yeah.
Again, and
Is it
and
worth
then
it?
the robots, the robots in school too. I mean, we're talking about data collection too.
Yeah.
This is the bottom line. This is the kind of data collection. So, I mean, it is data collection because they capture your image, and if you come through again, then they say, nope, you've already been through here, which is all well and good, but it's just a little bit. I don't like that one bit. I don't like the facial scan things at all. I think we have enough surveillance, way too much as it is, and to do this with kids. But this is in Japan, but who knows if this will come here or not.
Orwellian. It's Orwellian.
Very Orwellian for sure. So that's pretty much the show for this week. I just want to remind people tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern on Extra Bull Alive, our buddy Lucy from Blue Moon Red Wine. Let's do this properly. We want to cut her off here. Let's do this. So Blue Moon Red Wine's going to come on. She's going to be talking about independent media, kind of dishing the tea, as it were, about some of these journalists and so-called journalists in the independent space. She's going to be on for that, and we're going to be talking about a good amount of stuff. So it's probably going to be a longer than extra show.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah. And
Lucy doesn't. She doesn't hold back either.
No, she doesn't.
Which I like about her. Yeah, she definitely. She says it like it is. I'm one of these people. I like blunt people. I didn't used to. I used to think, well, that's just kind of rude. But now I'm just like, I would rather prefer blunt people than other folks, But Lucy's she's a good person. She does her research and she does her homework for sure. Yeah. And coming up this Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern, our pals in the space are going to be joining us for the Undercurrent prime time special. We're going to be out when the sun goes down. What? Tentative scheduled to appear our buddy Ed Heller, Willie Bragg, Game.Film, Jamar Jabari, Marcus Cage, and of course yours truly and Miss Lainie P right here will be there celebrating. We just got over 100 subscribers. It's always a good reason to get together for a party. We're at 104 now.
105.
Oh, we're at 105.
I just checked. Good. 105.
Very good. So our growth is thanks to you guys, as always.
We do appreciate it.
And we appreciate everything you do. So come out for that. We'll be just, shooting the bull and just hanging out and talking about all kinds of things with pals of ours in the space. So please join us for that.
Absolutely. I just shared also our Substack link for this week's show. It also has a link directly to Uncle Warren's show tonight with Lucy. And then at the end, also a direct link to the Friday night show.
Yes, Lucy cusses out the disreputable thoroughly. Yes.
Absolutely.
Love her. And again, want to remind you of our mutual aid folks who need your help. We told you about our buddy Yoninah, who just lost her cat. I hope she finds it.
I hope so too.
Yeah, and she's a wonderful person. She's been a big supporter of this show and others in the space too. So if you can help those folks out, if you could donate or share out the links, either one of those things will be good. Other than that, I guess I'm going to have that show tonight, and of course, Morning Extra on Friday morning.
Absolutely.
And Secret Show Saturday night, along with.
I look forward to it all week, Uncle Warren. That the Secret Show, I love it.
Yeah, it's a good way to blow off some steam. You don't really have to talk about. We talk about so much all these dastardly deeds that's going on in the world. Sometimes you just need a couple hours to just relax and do some,
and
have some silly
laughter. share
Yeah.
laughter.
It's a good community too that shows up
Yeah.
for that. Everybody's, we try to get everybody in the chat involved, and it's really a fun time. So if you could come out for that, we appreciate it. Other than that, anything else you got on your mind there, Lainie?
Looking forward to the show tonight and going forward. Thank you all so much for your support too.
Yes. Thank you. We sure do appreciate it. And this show will be back next week at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific time. We're on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook. Of course, all the show notes are on Substack, and we're on Instagram now. We're back.
Yeah, we are on
Instagram.
Instagram. It's not the best view that you're going to get, but you'll get the live notification. So if you want, come back over to YouTube once you see my Instagram light up.
Yes, please do. I think I might be able to fix that in there too. I think that may be something we can fix on this end, but I'll see. I don't make any promises. Just like Dad going out for cigarettes. He said he was coming back, but he must really like those cigarettes. Anyway, that's it for us. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day, great week, great month, and we'll see you soon. Okay.
Peace out.